Hey guys, the title is not clickbait. I have actually been held back by this island sanctuary mechanic at this point, the past few levels, and especially painful now that I'm at 8. It's bad. But I have also done some math already, trying to get myself unstuck, and so there is actually some spreadsheet work here to come to some of these conclusions I'm going to say in this video. So this has everything to do with the fact that the island fundamentally runs off of seafarers, not islanders, but the seafarers' cowries. I'm going to call it cowbell from now on though. But this is how you will acquire more space to build more buildings. This is how you will upgrade your farmland and your pasture for raising and feeding the Pokemon. That being said, without enough of this cowbell, you are going to basically get stuck. So for most people who value their sleep and are probably around on Sanctuary rank 2 or rank 3, which is most sane people, which I am not, which currently I am at Sanctuary level 8, and things are very different here, so that's why I'm making this video. At rank 3, you have a ton of seafarers, cowbells coming in just from doing the basic missions. Once you are done the tutorial and off on your own though, that supply is cut off. That is over. Now really the question became for me, where do I get more seafarers cowries? The Islanders' cowries are obvious. You collect the items and hand them in to the enterprising exporter. That would not be a problem if that was the solution. But the only real source for these is from the workshop. Something that I've already read in my comments people want to skip over or they don't want to spend the time to get started with, but that's fundamentally become really the main objective and main roadblock on moving forward. And I did projects honestly as soon as I could. I was like, oh, this is a neat system, let's investigate it, as everyone saw in my last video. And even then currently I am stuck. So what should you be focused on, or what pitfalls should you try and avoid? You should try and build workshops as your #1 priority, and to get them up and running immediately. You can have a total of 3 of them. Make sure you get those 3 as fast as you can. At one point I did actually seriously question if I should put down a granary, especially because I'm relatively ahead of the curve on the island sanctuary. Obviously I'm not world first, whatever, but I literally had no one and nothing to really cite or understand, but wow, did I make the right decision? Because even with the workshops going, I am still unable to upgrade key island elements from like multiple levels now. So while a more formal guide will come out once I'm Island Sanctuary rank 10, because I am also developing the spreadsheets and the calculation tools and the tables I'll release soon to help solve the Island Sanctuary crafting. Until rank 10, you don't really even know what the crafts that you can do are. Like, I just hit like Sanctuary 8 and I'm like, oh, that added a few new crafts here that I had no idea about. So this is still new and it's really hard to state what the mechanics are, and so I'm not going to make a guide on it. But what I can do is I can give you the mechanics that I do understand at this point, because I do feel like I have a solid grasp on these fundamentals and this has been working out for me, as well as I have done a spreadsheet where I talk about all of this, or less so talk about it and more did a bunch of math to like determine a whole bunch of things. So the #1 thing is get as many workshops as you can early and get them running quickly. They are useless to you if you don't have them running. #2 is go to the Tactful Taskmaster and start assigning out projects as soon as you possibly can. #2.5, so like 2.5, is when you have a granary, which is always secondary to getting those 3 workshops, send them out to collect rare materials, specifically spruce lumber and raw island garnet. As you can see, these materials are going to be used to upgrade the workshops and the granaries later on, when you're at like the point of like that I'm at right now, which is kind of like another little roadblock, but it's not as major as the other one. But now for the Taskmaster, assigning tasks can be a little daunting at first, but fundamentally you can follow these rules. So the first rule is throw a very short 4-hour craft at the start of each day. You are going to be kicking yourself if you're wasting longer than that. This craft at the start is not truly worthless, but it's essentially worthless and just used to get double the rewards efficiency bonus going for the bigger ticket items coming after it. From there, you're going to put in those big items and fill the day from start to finish. And don't be very careful about this, but don't let those 2 hours be left over at the end of the day, because that is 2 hours of absolutely no productivity, which will absolutely plummet the value that you're getting out of the system. Yes, you might think that 8-hour item is better, and it might be in terms of like directly in that 8-hour block, is it a higher value per hour? Okay, true. But what happens when you factor in those other 2 hours of literally zero value? It drops the value. It's not advanced math whatsoever. It's just make sure you use your full day. I've ran it in the spreadsheet, not good. In general, there might be some exception at like rank 9 or 10 that I don't know about. Now, the third rule to follow is that you have a lot of different options here on what to craft, and when you are trying to decide what to craft, open up the button Review Supply and Demand, and this will show you a whole bunch of options. The main thing here is to identify things that have low supply and high demand. Everyone has heard it in their life. I have never taken an economy course in my life. I have done human cadavers, I have done neuroscience, I have done clinical neuroscience, I have done like computing science, I have done the whole gambit, but never economy. And even I know low supply, high demand means high prices for what you are offering. And so rising demand, though, is another stat to take into account when you are looking to schedule for tomorrow or like further days on. So that's a good stat for that. But if you are scheduling for today, as far as I can tell so far from my experimentation, it is not so good for today. But always make sure that everything is running for the full day, every day that you can. Now for the spreadsheet I have here, there are some noteworthy things here. Some items like the growth formula, the garnet raper, and other crafts have very high value per hour, over double what a grilled clam or a fire sand have, but their items are generally very obnoxiously difficult to get. One thing to also note is that the bonus for being low supply, high demand seems to be like additive on top of this base value. This base value doesn't really seem to like go lower or higher. This seems to be on face value what you're gonna get baseline, and then the on demand bonus gets like added on or maybe slightly multiplied onto it. But back to the obnoxiously difficult to get items. In fact, early on in the island, I would say the gardening items are by far the worst to get. I have the seeds, I have planted them the very second I could plant them in the tutorial, and they still haven't grown, and so I'd focus on the items below this line that I've written in the like diagram. Second to that is going to be the Pokemon leftovers, which I have gotten some Pokemon gifts, so it's not as difficult to farm the crops, but it is still a slow to start thing for sure. Also, you might have the wrong animals in the pen. Well, then you're kind of out of luck. Thirdly, I say get rare materials that are like difficult to get because they require you to send out a team with the granary to get, which the granary, I'm not saying it's irrelevant, that's not what I was getting at before, but it is secondary to the workshop. And at least as far as I've experienced, this granary mission type seems to be the only way that is able to get the rare resources like that garnet I was talking about earlier or the spruce lumber. But once you have that going, it's reliable and can be directed to a set of materials. So in terms of recommendations for anyone earlier on than me, we are largely going to be focused on items that you can gather, and of those there are some items that are significantly massively harder to get than others. Like copper ore farming is awful because of the spawn location, same with some other materials. I noticed those materials were accessible, but to get a significant amount of them was demoralizingly slow. With lots of space between nodes, it was much slower. So I calculated that the value per hour, or VPH, versus the objective difficulty rating, which is just literally the difficulty to get the items multiplied by the quantity of the items that you require for each craft, and then I arrived at my final values, which really, until I have more time to calculate and get a formal guide, largely is just the order that you see on the page below with that large white line. So ribbon, salt cod, essential potions, rope, ink, bronze, sheep are all really good options. But for those longer hour items in general, I'm gonna say squid ink and rope are great for our block fillers. Now in terms of the supply and versus demand, I need more time to research it, but generally aim at supplies with higher demand, lower supply, but it seems to be an additive bonus like I said before, so you won't say get less than 459 for a ribbon. Anyhow, that's really it for this video. If this helps you, I'd be super thrilled, because I literally haven't gotten like any sleep, if you slammed an Island Sanctuary of Adventure on that like button. Cat died, that subscribe button. I'm just getting this information out there really quick because I don't want people to really fall into the bad position of saying, oh no, literally no one told me about the Seafarer's Cowries. Well, I have, so take note, don't get stuck. Anyhow, take care everyone and have a great day. I genuinely hope you do. I'm so tired, but I hope this video helps. I genuinely do.